Om Dhanurgrihitva Upanishadam Mahastram Sharam Upasanashita Sanjayita Ayamya Tadbhavakatena Chetasa Laksham Tadevaksharam Somya Vidhi. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Taking as bow that mighty weapon furnished by the Upanishads, fasten to it the arrow of mind, made sharpened by thoughts on reality alone. Then, drawing full strength, O student, release and penetrate that mark, the imperishable Brahman. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. And so the Upanishads are very explicit about using the scriptures for a mighty bow in which you fasten your mind to, like an arrow. But the arrow could be dull. Some people come to the scriptures and they don't see it, or they read it once and they don't get the deeper implications. Just like there's deeper implications to all the realm of name and form, and you have to see through that. There's the appearance tree, there's the atomic particle tree, and then there's the thought tree and the Buddha nature tree. And those four levels you have to understand. That's waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and turiya, your fourth state of consciousness, which you want to awaken to in this lifetime, as hopefully you did in other lifetimes. But if your arrow was not so sharp in other lifetimes, maybe you shot the arrow at the target and either missed, or it hit the target and bounced off because it was too dull. So the mind needs to be sharpened. The senses even need to be sharpened. If you go about the world just seeing objects and that's all you see and go after them for your pleasure, then that's called dull senses. They're outward going only, says the Mundaka Upanishad. But if you sharpen the senses, they can be love eyes and love ears and so forth. Everything you see, taste, touch, hear, and smell becomes Brahman-like. Brahman can never be the form or the senses or any other material thing or any other thought form or any other energy. But it's nonetheless inferred by all the cognitions of the mind. And we looked at that yesterday in terms of neti neti, iti iti. That is, you finally come to the fourfold mind with its thoughts and its intelligence and its ego, and that dual part of mind which you have to deal with, which is rather like there is suffering. And you see in it the ability to either go inward or outward, just like the senses. Outward going mind, outward going senses, they connect and make a pact with one another, and then life is rather dull. Mind can't penetrate, you see, it's not sharp. But inward going mind begins to see the self within all. Prior to that, it's probably seeing the Trinity, the gods and goddesses, the deities that you're meditating on. It's probably fathoming the mantra and its meanings, the words, and it might even hear the Om or see the light in certain subtle states of its awareness. But you want original mind, OM, and that begins to take you towards that eternal moment in which the Word was with God and the Word was God. That is, in the beginning was the Word, that means origins. We know by the teachings of Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, that there is no origin to anything. So you don't want to take origins as the ultimate truth. You want to know that there is an originless Almighty Father, if you want to put it that way, and that it doesn't go through birth, life, and death like you. It doesn't suffer stages like the mind's awareness. It doesn't go to different levels of consciousness. As it were, it reflects in everything, but it does not move. So that's everything from the Trinity on down is moving, either inwardly or outwardly. And the predicament of the human soul, that is embodied soul, is that it's moving outwardly now. And it casts appearances and drops veils. And that's your business as an embodied human soul, to see through those every moment, every second. Because the minute you drop your awareness, then Maya will leak into your thinking consciousness, to your dream state, to your waking state, to your acts. And we know that that's the perfect combination for karma to be born and to wreak its effects upon your life. We don't see that in the seers. That's one thing that people don't admit. You see, they say, well, we've come and we've seen these great souls, but we're not using them as exemplars. We either say, I don't believe them, or I don't believe in them, or we say, save me, save me. And neither of those are going to provide a very profound solution. You have to know your oneness with them, like Christ knew his oneness with the Father. And like the Sanskrit Mahavakyas say, the self is Brahman, aham brahmasmi. You have to come to know that without a doubt. And in order to do that, then you will look at these beings and you will accept what they say, and you will take it to task inside of yourself. And that's called responsibility, and that is the only thing that leads to freedom, is you take responsibility for your own spiritual life. You don't wait around for 7,000 years for someone to come back and help you. You take the life of a great soul based upon how they lived and what they said, and you don't look for anything before or after. And that's why I was explaining yesterday that the ascent of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, in time is a pillar that represents the eternal moment. Nothing that happened before it made any difference. Nothing that's going to happen afterwards makes any difference. That's the eternal moment. And you then feel blessed by that little, if you will, major scene that Holy Mother was born into and that Sri Ramakrishna was born into. And you take that as the pillar of Ishvara, that is how God comes to earth and how everything else is revolving around it, no matter how else it seems otherwise. See? Because Maya will make it seem otherwise. It'll turn it back on itself, make it look like evolution is real, like time is real, like birth, growth, and death are real, when never is the case. See? So a great soul like Vivekananda comes to earth, and then he comes all the way to the west and tells you these things. Have thou no home? What home can hold thee, friend? The sky thy roof, the grass thy bed, food what chance may bring, well cooked or not, judge, well cooked or ill, judge not. Or he'll tell you, say peace to all, from me no danger be to aught that lives. Those who dwell on high, those who lowly creep, I am the self and all. Well, I had to have compassion on those that lowly creep this morning, because I went to meditation there at 6 in the shrine, and I was offering incense and flowers, and the flowers that we offered last night on the shrine, one of them contained a slug. And so I was happily circling Master's image with incense, and there's a little slug crawls across right there. So I circled it with incense and then went and got a paper towel and set it back into nature from which it originated. So from those that dwell on high to those that lowly creep, I am the self in all. You see, all beings have that Brahman as their foundation. And so we we must see that clearly and then identify with it, not just see it clearly and then bounce off of it. You see, like an arrow, a dull arrow would off of a target. So therefore, take those Upanishads like we're doing this morning, and sharpen your mind with thoughts on reality alone, and release and penetrate the mark. Let's do that. Now, yesterday, we went through slokas 4 and 5, and that says, the mind of the yogi perishes
as he stays without intermission in the self alone. By the way, for those of you who are not familiar with the teachings of the Upanishad, that's a good thing. The mind perishes without intermission as it meditates on the self alone. That is, like Holy Mother saying, Swami Vivekananda remains in like a wooden statue in meditation for 700 years at a time when he leaves the earth realm, at a very high level, at a causal realm, as the chief rishi of the 7 lokas. He's presiding over Brahma Loka on down. He's an eternally perfect soul, Sri Ramakrishna called him, a Nitya Siddha. Very rare to see those on earth. Maybe once in every 500,000 years. Maybe less often than the Avatar. And in fact, it was the Avatar, Sri Ramakrishna, that convinced Swami Vivekananda to come to earth, got him out of that meditation. And the ark of the world is sinking in lust and greed. We must go down there and save the suffering, is how the song goes. It was written by my teacher's teacher, Swami Shardananda. So, in that case then, you must know that this is a good thing, that the mind of the yogin perishes when he stays without intermission in thoughts of the self alone. See, with thoughts on reality alone, right? Sharpen that arrow. After the mind's been sharpened by thoughts on reality alone. We went on to say, through reasoning, shruti, and experience, he is the self in all beings. So that's shruti, to hear, manana or yukti, to rationalize and roll your mind over the teachings. So you can get those deeper levels of meaning and then finally have your direct experience from that. So you're going to have to, as I'm saying this and you're reading it, put it to mind. And when you go home tonight, say, what did Babaji say? What does the Adhyatma Upanishad say? And then you're going to have to recite that sloka in your mind as if it's written across the interior of your mind in letters of molten gold, like the Quran is on the Muslim devotees, you see, the minds of the Muslim devotees. A friend of mine gave me some Zamzam yesterday, one of my students. Zamzam, you know what that is? If you go on the Hajj, and you take this pilgrimage, then there's a spring along the way where someone once prayed in the desert. They were thirsty, and water came up from there and turned into a spring, and so that's Muslim holy water now. So came back from this Hajj, one of his friends brought him some bottles of Zamzam. He drank lots of it. He said, it must be very holy by now. But then my student said, here, you can have some, and so we'll use that as a Muslim holy water, you see, right out of the springs of someone's prayer, that this thirst be slaked, you see, and that life can go on, hopefully in a very mindful manner. So you reason, then you have that direct experience yourself, and that's called Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava, he said yesterday, and that's the 3 proofs of truth. Then we went on to Sloka 5, without granting for a moment even a toehold for sleep, gossip, verbal exchanges, and self-forgetfulness, meditate on the self within the self. See? Meditate on the great self within the small self. I suppose you could say meditate on the small self within the great self too. But basically, God is not in the world is in God. So you want to make a great offering of the self into the great self, and then realize the two are one. That is, Drishyam Pratitam Pravilapayan San Matram Anandaganam Fibalvayam. We've all meditated on that sloka and memorized it. So the internal, Bahir Antaram Va, take the external and the internal and render them into one state. Meditate on that state, pass your time contentedly, and be free. It's like saying Purnamadaha Purnamida Purnamadachate, that the outside, or what's external, though finite, is infinite, and the inside, that is in the mind, that's also infinite. From this infinite, the finite has come, yet being infinite, only infinite remains. The whole thing is one infinite, eternal mass of pure conscious awareness. See? A mass of pure conscious awareness.
So it seems to have divisions. It seems to have movement. It seems to have phases, time. Time, space, and causality, and name and form are the 5 elements of Maya. She makes it look otherwise than what it really is. And your senses follow blindly, you see, like zombies at Halloween that we saw last night knocking on our door, asking for candy, you see. We were in the midst of puja. You see, we were all downstairs. Luckily, we'd left some candy upstairs for the kids, you see. So they came knocking at the door in the middle of our puja. So it was God knocking, wasn't it? In the form of little children. So, however, you don't want the mind to be childish. A seer is not childish. He is described as childlike. That is, just like a child whom the gunas don't get a hold of for very long. That is, will grab something and hang on to it and then give it away the next moment without even thinking, you see. A great soul is like that. Can seem to be selfish and self-involved and all that, and all of a sudden, without the slightest hint, unlike yourself, giving everything away and not attaching to anything. See? So the gunas are not settled in that mind. They haven't found a foothold. See? So therefore, don't even allow a toehold for sleep, for gossip, for verbal exchanges that are, how's the weather, you see, or like I said yesterday, good morning. Good, bad, mixed, and bad morning is what you're saying. It's a good, bad, and mixed morning. It's not a good morning at all. It'll turn mixed and bad very soon. You just wait and see as you get out into the world of Maya. So you don't allow a toehold for that to get to you. See, you remain non-reactive and equanimous, and that's your test every day to do that with every breath. And you get to test it in meditation too. You see how your mind reacts to formlessness. You see, you know how your mind reacts to form, don't you? With aversion and reaction and elation or whatever it is. But what about how does your mind relate to formlessness? With aversion? With fear? That's your true nature you're talking about. Sri Ramakrishna once told Swami Vivekananda, if you were, the young Naren, that is, before he was Swami Vivekananda, if you were a fly and you saw this bowl of nectar, what would you do? And Naren said, I'd light on the rim of the bowl and lean my head over and lick with my tongue that nectar, being very careful not to fall in and die. And Sri Ramakrishna laughed and said, that's the ocean of nectar you're talking about there. That's your true nature. You're not going to die there. In fact, the fly is dead. The body is dead. It's dead the minute it's born. It's just rushing towards death, and nobody wants to face that fact. So when it will die, only you know. Because you planned your death before you got into the body, and you planned your birth before you got into it. And then you conveniently forgot it all so you could play here. And hopefully you put a lot of good reminders in your path before you got into the body too. And then in mock surprise you went, how nice, thank you, God. Or in utter horror you said, the devil did that to me. But it was all you all the time. So this is Vedanta Station, all the good, bad, and mixed news all the time. You see. And so we need to realize that there's a fourth state beyond these, and that's the true nature. You see, that's the good news of Vedanta, if you want to call it that the soul is not sinful, it's divine. Don't try that at home yet until you realize it, you see. You must know that your soul is divine, but you must realize it. So sharpen your arrow, penetrate the mark, and realize the imperishable Brahman in this very life. There's nothing holding you back but yourself. Unfortunately, yourself also contains your ancestors, your family. We've been having a lot of strange family things going on that I've seen in the last 3 or 4 days, just to show the evils of family. Just narrow-minded people who want to rail against everything that's positively good for the world and want to cling to their own little tiny worlds, you see, and cause problems for others, or overanalyze things and scream at each other and criticize. You see. So he says, don't even allow a toehold for that. Gossip is mentioned there. So what did Holy Mother say about gossip? She said, you should know everything that happens around you, but you should not talk about it. So you keep your mind on everything, every little thing you see, the kids coming to the door trick-or-treating, the tendencies of people, Maya, the evils of the family life. You keep your mind on it all and you take note of it, and you don't talk about it. You witness it. And that practice of witness consciousness will make you non-reactive when horrible events called phenomena happen to the world. And they will happen to the world, and they'll keep happening to the world, and you'll never be able to do anything about it. Because the world is full of suffering. First Noble Truth, Lord Buddha, thank you very much for clarifying that fact. Good, bad, and mixed is the world. Or as Vivekananda put it, there's no such thing as a good world. It's like saying hot ice. It's not going to happen. So if you're looking for a utopian society through science, good luck with that, as they say. Splitting the atom and then Hiroshima and so forth. 9/11, then nuclear-tipped missiles going in all directions. Man goes to war to try and achieve peace, and that is Maya. Peace is within, and that's why we say Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. You must have peace within, and then try and bring it out, you see. And you know peace is with the Trinity, with Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They're always living in a pure sattva, you see. They're right at the hub where all form occurs. The word is written on their hand. See, if you see Ram or Krishna or so forth, you see those icons that they have the word written on their very hand. See? So they stand with their backs to that divine word, and all light intelligence flows out of it into them and then to us. So we need to keep our minds sharp and keep it away from gossip and slander. Sleep. Sleep means, as Krishna said, yoga, union, is not for that one who eats too much or eats too little. It's not for that one who sleeps too much or sleeps too little. So you avoid extremes, and you follow the middle path that Krishna prescribed, the middle path that Lord Buddha prescribed, the middle path that Sri Sharda came to tell us about again. Keep us even-minded. Not too much bliss, not too much sorrow, not too much excess of anything, just equality. There's a word for that in Sanskrit. Samatha, it's called. So, meditate on the self in the self. So that's where we ended yesterday. Now, Sloka 6 is new. Casting the body far aside, which is the offspring of parental exudations, since its status is hardly better than an outcast, thus become Brahman and realize fulfillment. Thus become Brahman and realize fulfillment. Now, there are many things in the way, and that's why I put up this chart. See, take a quick look at the various granthis, or knots, that, as far as these last two slokas are concerned, sleep, gossip, all those things, and not keeping our mind in a state of remembrance, that is, forgetting all the time, letting our mind fall out of oneness, out of yoga, then we create for ourselves some karma, and those karmas can exacerbate and become a disease without a remedy, as is sung in the songs of India. So the word there is granthis, and you see it there at the top, knots in the body-mind mechanism. But they occur at different levels of your being. Anagranthis are knots in the Annamaya Kosha, they're in the physical body, and people pretty much focus on those and don't know where their causes come from. And that's why we're casting about with medicine and so forth. Take this pill, hopefully it'll help. And maybe it will help the body for a time, but the cause of the whole granthi, and the cause of the disease itself, has come from the mind. So we're not connecting our medicine and our healing arts to psychology, see, in that regard. that we know that it's coming from the mind. And our psychology is going to have to know that it comes from the mind via impressions that are lifetimes long. I mean, that's about as simple as I can put it if you want to follow the Vedic way of thinking about it. The ancient Aryans and the ancient Tantrasists that lived along the Indus River and later became known as Hindus. I was in a women's prison the other night having a pastoral visit with one of the ladies there, and she said, two Methodist preachers are coming in here to grill me about why I took the path of Hinduism. And I said, you didn't take the path of Hinduism, you took the path of Vedanta. Let's clear this up right now so you can talk to them when they come in, and be shored up in your faith, because Vedanta doesn't turn around and try and proselytize. It just offers you the truth and tries to make a Hindu a better Hindu and a Christian a better Christian and a Jew a better Jew and so forth. But others are trying to come to your country and so forth. Like Vivekananda came over here and spoke at the Parliament of Religions, and one of the things he told us in one of his 12 lectures he gave, everyone knows the first famous one, but one of the 12 lectures he gave is, he said that you're sending your missionaries over to my country to give us their religion, to proselytize. And he said, we don't need your religion. India is the mother of all religions. What we need is your money. We're impoverished. You're wealthy, see. And so let's exchange here. We'll give you this man-making, ennobling path of Vedanta, this eternal path that Christ knew, that Buddha knew, that Krishna knew. And you send us some of your material knowledge. We'll give you spiritual knowledge. You give us back some material knowledge, and this will be a happy, harmonious way of bringing the world to a better place. See, a good, bad, and mixed place. We'll get the upper hand on negativity for a while. See, and hands across the water and all that happy stuff. So we must connect our problems in the body level with mind, and in between body and mind is energy. So man does not live by bread alone. Christ was referring to prana, that there's an energy in everything. It's in food, it's in the river that flows, it's in the fire that burns, it's in the suns in the sky. That's its physical form, but its subtle forms are deeper. The power of the eye to see, the power of the arm to move, the power of the tongue to taste, the power to formulate thoughts, that's going on by prana. Food doesn't do that for you. It just keeps it sustained on a physical level. Buddha didn't eat for days, you see, and he could still come out of his nirvana and talk to people. So the force of will was stronger than the force of food. And that's the connection between the physical, the ana, and the mind. See, pranagranthis. So you see they're knots in the life force. What are they? Dulled thought process. Oh, gee, we were just talking about that. You better sharpen your arrow, you see. Prana might be the wedding stone, you see, on which you can do that. If you're not seeing right, hearing right, speaking right, acting right, thinking right, then increase the prana. Practice your breathing exercise. Get some energy going. Take a walk. Take a hike. Get some energy going in the physical level, then trace that physical energy back to where it came from. Breathing, let's see, air, oxygen. Connect oxygen with everything. Get oxygen into your brain, because you get oxygen into your brain, maybe you'll get Om into your mind. And that's where we're headed here. So dulled thought process is not going to do it, because then gossip and slander and forgetfulness and too much sleep are the result of that. See, they have a cause. Everything has a cause. We're so big in science about cause and effect, well then let's be fair. See, where there's relativity, there's also reality. And so you must search for it inside, as they would search for oil and sesame seeds in the old days. Someone had to have the idea that maybe there's something nutritious in here. Early man had to think, maybe there's fire in that wood. See, saw a spark somewhere, saw lightning. which is several hundred times hotter than the sun, by the way. Lightning is Vajra. We studied Vajra in the retreat last weekend. You see that lightning bolt? That's like the goddess's symbol, you see. Lightning swift, hotter than the sun, you see. Higher than the highest, lower than the lowest, faster than the fastest, slower than the slowest. Right out of the Upanishads. Impulsive action. I go to prisons and I see people there from karma that was brought about by impulsive action. They didn't have control of their prana. That is, they didn't have control of their hands and reached out for someone's neck impulsively. See? Just like you and me. I'd like to throttle that person. You know, we have that in our mind sometimes, especially when you see evil families. Like to throttle that person, but you don't do it. You have the restraint necessary, you see. And then you look into your mind and you try and turn that negative thought positive, and I forgive, you know. They're just children, you see. Even though they're 50 years older than I am, they're just children. Vivekananda came here, I see, you're all babies spiritually. He was like in his 20s. He was talking to old men, you see, and old women. I see you're just babies spiritually. Well, babies must submit to be taught, so here I go. I'll offer you this wisdom, because actually I may look like I'm 20, but I'm an eternal soul. And my master called me a Nityasiddha, eternally perfect. So here, let me share some of that Dharma with you, which will remake you, cut you in the image of God, right? Because the image of God isn't looking so sharp and defined nowadays, anywhere. Nothing out there in the world is reflecting God now except the Dharma. And a few rare souls that have taken to it. We'll get to that in a minute. So impulsive action, because of these knots in the prana, you see, the life force isn't flowing correctly. Fluctuation of energy, we call that moods and so forth, but in its modes actually of nature, sometimes dullness naturally comes to your brain, you see, but you have to use your mind to say, I'm not the brain. When you have a despondent mood, what's the first thought? You see, neti. It's like you say, I'm Atma Brahma. Won't you use that against it? Or are you going to run and take a pill or sleep some more? Unsteadiness of nerves. That's basically, again, from lack of breathing. You can bring energy into your nerves, even your physical nerves, by breathing. Just like you can bring oxygen into those nerves that lead to the brain and give it more oxygen. But when they say nerves here, I'm talking about prana, which most people don't know about. They're talking about subtle nerves called nadis, too. There at the heart, where hundreds and thousands of nerve endings meet, abides the Atman. See? So we're talking about not just outward prana and so forth, and outward breathing, but finding the meaning of prana and connecting it to the heart and moving inside these kingdoms of heaven within you. Which is not just a cryptic mention by Christ, but he actually saw them in his meditation. That's why he took his disciples to Gethsemane and meditate. Listen for the word, see. It's humming inside you like 1,000 bumblebees, as India tells you. And see the light inside of you, and see all the worlds living in that light. See, if we keep our water tanks covered in Hawaii, absolutely dark, because if any bit of light gets in there, you've got some, it's like a petri dish. A petri is also a Sanskrit word for your ancestors. So everything is fomenting, you see. So you want to keep all that light out. See, that light of this downward moving force, you see. That is, the only light I see is the sun. See, and I don't even know what that is. I don't know there's a sun god. make some guesses about how long it's going to last before we all die on Earth. But we were never born on Earth. We were always an eternal soul. And the sun is just a great thought in the collective mind of humanity. Millions of suns are there. I can get another one. That one bursts, I can get another one, you see. But this light of consciousness, this is something unique and singular, something that has to be experienced, and it's flowing through these nadis, right? From the heart out and back into the heart. Evolution, be fair. Involution is next, you see. Cause and effect. Dualities. So, of course, they're at the root, unimpeded and uneven breathing. I didn't even really go through the anagranthis. Pretty obvious. Premature decay, constriction of muscles, failure of bodily organs to respond, recurring diseases and circulatory interference. That's all about the physical nadis, the organs and these physical nerves leading to organs and not carrying the blood right. There is one of the 5 pranas, and it circulates nutrients and brings them to your organs to keep them healthy. See, so you want to sit up straight. You want to breathe. Doesn't mean I sit up straight for an hour in meditation. I slump the rest of the day. See, doesn't mean I'm also spiritual when I close my eyes in meditation, but when I go out to work, I'm not spiritual anymore. I have to wait till next morning to be spiritual again. See, do you want to be an example to others or not? You want to shine your light or not? See? So this vigil you need to keep, you see, and not let even for a moment, the toe hold, you see, for sleep, gossip, and forgetfulness. That's sleep, gossip, verbal exchanges, and self-forgetfulness. Don't forget yourself. Now let's look at the Hridaya Granthis. This is really meant here because Hridaya is more like Atman, it's more like the heart chakra. But we're meaning it here in terms of emotional body, the emotional heart of people. Feelings, sensitivities, sentiments, emotions, those kinds of things have knots in them. See, from the bottom up, you get this habitual sensual gratification. And if it's taken away from you, then you have an emotional state called anger. I've seen that crop up several times in the last couple of days. Not just in people, but in emails. Anger, see. Passion-based agitation. See, so you can't satisfy the passions, and remember what we're saying about this, that if you don't breathe, and if your nerves become steady and your energy fluctuates and you give way to impulsive action and your mind is dulled, this is the result. You see, your emotions then are troubled all the time. You can't keep them under control. Start airing your dirty laundry over the air to millions of other people who's got no business looking into it. They're just feeding off of it. This is called feeding off the vital energy, you see. It's easy to look at the problems of others or the perfections of others, but do nothing yourself. It's hypocritical to do that too. So all of these come from one another, and you can look at it from the inside out, but we're going up the ladder, just one by one, ticking them off, you see, and defeating them with the Dharma, with knowledge of truth, so that we can bring the truth to bear. And we're going to go all the way with it. We're not stopping halfway. Somewhere along the way in some sort of conventional or inefficient modalities. That's why Vedanta doesn't have much regard for healing, because they feel that your Atman is always healthy, that the healthy doesn't need a doctor. If you have to be subject to healing, then what happened to you? See? You have to run to a doctor or this and that, you see. What happened to you? Why didn't you just breathe? Why didn't you just say, I don't have disease? Or if the body does contract disease, why don't you just say, well, that belongs to the body, not to me. That's what I told my doctor when he said I had type 2 diabetes. No, I don't. My body has that. I don't. Can't convince me of that. Shut your mouth. Shut up. There's a new connotation for that nowadays. Shut up. It's like sort of an exclamation of amazement that someone would say that, you see. So be healthy. Be the Atman all the time. And be it in here, you see, because this is the medium between soul and matter. Mind is the medium between soul and matter. If the mind's not functioning right, if it's focused too much on matter and not enough on spirit, and there's no balance, then that's disharmony. And we're talking about holism nowadays, but it's not just eating organic food. We know people who ate meat and who ate poor food, were fed badly in prison and so forth, but they realized the Atman in their life. When I played for the Karmapa music, divine music, he was eating meatballs and noodles as he listened to me play. So it's not what you eat necessarily, you see, that's secondary. Adapt that to the body and the way it's reacting to your diet. But you must hold this mental perspective that's at a much, much higher level. And that's this knowledge that I and my Father are one. And be done with all of these emotional confusions and doubts. There's more sentimental obsession, see, dispositional discord. You know the teaching of the four moods, right? Anaprasada is purity of food, and samprasada is purity of mood. Adhyatma Upanishad is spirit, purity of self or soul. So anyway, the purity of mood, samprasada, is something that you hold. You see, you don't go out with a bad mood. Don't let a bad mood come in. You're not supposed to allow it a foothold, right? I saw people who had mastered this. Our own founder, Lex Hickson, I never saw him, even when he had cancer of the intestines at the end, I never saw him in any kind of a negative mood. It was amazing, sometimes even a bit maddening. Wouldn't you just say one negative thing, please? See? Oh, come on. But so eternally positive all the time, and just buoyed up. And he would buoy you up. So you could always depend to go there and see that great light shining out of him. I can attest to it. Emotional confusion, of course we know about that. I've used the analogy of households in Hawaii that I see, that there are 6 TVs going on, one in every room. You see, and then children are yelling at each other, they can't use a civil tone, and the parents are using cuss words in every sentence. And that's the household. See, that's the house in which I grew up. And you wonder why you're in prison, or why you're confused, or why you're a psychopath, why you're an axe murderer. But no, let's condemn them for being that, you see, and put them in prison, get them out of the way, when it was our fault to begin with, you see. So, reform, right? Reform. And at the level of our authorities, religion, Swamiji called that the fire-darting reformers, you see. No compassion in them, no forgiveness in them. Only a very narrow way, you see. So emotional confusion is rampant, you see, around people. We need to, it's called kshoba in Sanskrit, emotionalism, but the solution for it is akshoba. You just refuse to be emotional. That's all. You don't let your emotions get in because they cloud your judgment, and you do things, and this is a result. You don't think that getting all mad and upset and crying and weeping over every little thing isn't going to make your body sick? You know it does. You just don't know the actual dynamics of how that happens. That there are knots that you've created by doing this habitually, right? And so you want to remake that habit. Have a habit of joyfulness, mudita. You see, that's one of the 4 clarities, you see, mudita. I think I'll just be joyful. Love-related insecurities. Of course, this love means conditional love. There are no love-related insecurities in divine love. It doesn't exist. The direct disciples, particularly Swamiji, said, I had very loving parents, but I never found anyone that loved me unconditionally till I met Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He loved me truly. He was out for the good of my soul. My parents were out for the good of my security in the world, and so forth. So if you want to find true love, you're going to have to go to the fountainhead of pure love. You're going to have to know what prema bhakti is as compared to raga bhakti, or gauna bhakti. You're going to have to know that there is a love in which the duck loves the water, but the water doesn't love the duck. So there's one-sided love everywhere. But that unconditional love is very rare, and you look for it. If you find it in another soul, then you're very, very fortunate in this world, in this day and age. Someone who's out for your good only. See, it's not a matter of convenience either. Like, oh, let's help each other. Why? You don't need to help me. I'm just going to help you. You shouldn't have that attitude. It's got to be unconditional on your part, to be real, to be authentic. At least that's the measure in Vedanta. If you don't believe it, then go have a conventional marriage, and Lucy says it at the end of your lives. But if you want to have an eternal soul, you want to be united in the one, and never be bereft again, and never have to go through such a thing as love-related securities leading to dull thoughts, leading to circulatory interference and so forth, then put an end to it, you see. Don't even allow it a toehold. This isn't just something you read and put down, walk away. See? Each sentence, each word, as far as I'm concerned, has mother power in it. Why? Because last week in the Devi Upanishad, the sloka said, knowledge is her form. Well, let's see. I've seen paintings of her with 10 arms and 6 arms and 8 arms and 4 arms. I've seen Mother Mary in images, but have I ever seen them, actually seen them? You see? Do they really have a form? Even when they come into a Mother Mary or a Sri Sharda, isn't that just God in form you're seeing? Goddess? So then what is her real form? It's wisdom. The songs of India say that, that she doesn't even know the extent of her own wisdom. And you're going to have to seek for her in the form of pages and slokas and sutras and words and sentences and particles, letters, vowels, consonants. Slim it all down, you see. It's not like a big dearth of it. Like in a library, you're going to get all sorts of admixtures. But in the scriptures, you're going to slim it down to what is the meaning of that, and what is the deeper meaning of that, and is there a deeper meaning behind that? Until finally, I get insight. See, I get revelation by just a couple words. Tatvamasi. That thou art. That's what you were looking for all along. That the whole library came out of you. Make a study of libraries around the world without knowing that it came out of you. All of it. Every book. Every thought. Vivekananda was, if you have thoughts, then they're going to come back to you. You put them out into the physical ether, and they're going to come back to you. And everything cycles like that. So you want to put emotional thoughts out into the universe? You want to put painful thoughts out in the universe? Or do you want to put positive thoughts out? So it's just a matter of practicality. And it's not the highest teaching either. It's just something that you're going to have to attain before you can get to something that's purely spiritual. It's beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, and life and death. Now these managranthis up here, and we're going through this rather quickly because I want to make some inroads into this Upanishad, and then we can meet next time in March when Sri Ramakrishna's birthday puja happens here in Portland. The managranthis are really, like I said, everything's leading to this hub. You see, the mind is everything, my child. Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sharda said, you must keep it in good shape because it's going to be your vehicle to get to Brahman. Mind will be your vehicle to get to Brahman. And Sri Ramakrishna said, the mind is either the gateway to heaven or the doorway to hell. So it goes both ways. Outward only, you're probably headed towards hell. Have you noticed? And if it goes inward, you're headed toward heaven. And probably you don't want to limit the word heaven to a lowercase h. You want to say the highest heaven, the empyrean state of consciousness. And consciousness beyond worlds. That which you are, formless, but full of consciousness, formless. And so that's going to have a great impact on you and on others when you realize this. See, they say that realization of that will give the opportunity for 12 generations of future relatives and the last 12 generations back to get free. You'll free your whole family line by getting liberated. And that's not going to happen in salvation. You're probably going to be in a nice cycle of good life with the ancestors, good parents, and so forth. Maybe a little bit of less of these kinds of things, you see. Maybe there'll only be one TV in the house, and a couple cuss words a week, you see. And the children will only fight once in a while. You see, oh, that's a good life. But it's not divine life. It's not eternal life. And so this needs to be taken into account whenever you come into the form or into a world. Psychic disturbances, mental complexes, we could go on and on about them. Samskaras, there's no word for it, except maybe complex in English. That certainly none that has the powerful impact of the word samskara when you say it amongst yogis or amongst gurus. You say just the word samskara, it brings about the samadhi of pain. You see. The samadhi of compassion and pain. Oh yes, samskaras, I wish we could neutralize those, you see. People are just caught in them, like cows going back and forth between the farm, the barn and the field every day. They wear a rut. You know, pretty soon they're just walking knee deep in it. So they say take the same path all the time. So that's what a samskara is. You do a habitual thing over and over again, and it runs a rut in your mind, and that lasts for lifetimes. Why do you think there's so many lawyers, so many doctors, so many suffering souls? You're born with it. It's not your fault that in that one lifetime. Who was it that the man was born blind? His parents or him? Christ said neither. There's no fault in that lifetime. You're not looking to the last lifetime to find the problem. You're not looking back to where these complexes are formed. You didn't form blindness in this lifetime. You were born with it. So is that the judgment of a god or the curse of a devil? Or did you save someone from blindness last lifetime so you have to experience it this time? Or did you cause blindness to someone so you have to experience it this time? It isn't predicated on morality. It's predicated on karma. So you sow what you reap. See, you reap what you sow. Over and over again you do this in cycles. So that rut, you want to fill it in first, at least. If you can just jump out of it, that would be nice. But at least start filling it in with other materials. That's kind of the dharmic way, you see. But don't make it deeper and deeper, or remain complacent, you see, in these. I had a good life. See, I made my peace with God. Yes, but did you see God? Just before the camera came on with our live streaming audience, we were talking about Sri Ramakrishna seeing God and talking to God. He came out of the river under the banyan tree where I was sitting, and he spoke to me. He took my fingers and he cracked them. He laughed, he played, he patted me on the back. And he talked to me, see. Is this the visions of a madman? Well, yes, he used to say, all of you are mad, you see, with the world, but I'm mad for God. So take your pick. See, do you want God to come out of a river and talk to you? Or do you want to throw yourself into the river and die? Suicidal. See, it's up to you. The mind is predicating everything. See, so we must make it pure. We must make it firm. We must make it strong. We must make it a vehicle to get us to Brahman. So, mental complexes, we could go on and on about it. Samskara is the word, not samsara. Samsara is actually the combination of all the samskaras in the world. People are going around the wheel of birth and death, samsara, because of these samskaras. Now there are some very positive samskaras out there too. If you're twice born, they call you in India, then you were born with the memory of the scriptures, you see. And you can recite them. You can teach them, hopefully. And you can live a justified existence, you see. That is, the money you make at that profession will be justified and used wisely to raise a dharmic family and so forth. Like Sri Ramakrishna's family. He was a Brahmin priest for a time. He was raised in a very good family. No TVs on in that house. No cuss words. And I don't think the children ever fought. They were always very respectful of one another, loved each other. Intellectual uncertainties, it's really over and above my favorite of all. When Father of Yoga says Bhranti Darshana is one of the 9 Antaryayas, it's the only one that's at the intellectual level, then I think if that were cured, everything else would be cured. If we had the Dharma given to us, which is at the intellectual level, that would heal all this very soon. It's my premise for teaching Dharma in this world, to this Sangha, and on live streaming YouTubes and various things, is that I feel the Dharma is the only real solution at the level of this world. There is no other solution. And it'll end forever ignorance. That's what Krishna says in the Gita. Nahi gyanena sadrishyam pavitramiha vidyate tat yoga swaya samsiddhaha kalenatmani vindate. He goes on saying this to Arjuna. See, know that wisdom is the greatest purifier in all the worlds, Arjuna. You'll know this in time. You'll come to know this in time. It's like saying, peace be unto them and to none else. I was thinking about, I just mentioned all these family squabbles and problems that are rising up on all sides with my students and the people of the world out there. Some of my students are, living the very statement of Jesus that I've come to separate father from son and mother from daughter. They're living that because they've had to separate themselves from their family because their families are evil. They're really good, evil people. They're good, evil people. See, that is, their egos are not surrendered to God. They don't know what God is. They've never seen God, never talked to God, and their mention of God is all lip service. No realization in them, see, and all sorts of negative actions creating samskaras, and all sorts of masquerades, all sorts of things put in place. So let's remove Brahman out of there, and let's put this narrow religion in its place, you see, as if that's going to work. So when I say nothing here works, I mean religion too. The religion of the day is not working. Not for the worldly, see, not for the intellectual, maybe for the devotees, but that's real religion with a capital R. That's what Vivekananda used to say. We need to get rid of religion and bring back religion with a capital R. The real thing, the authentic article. You'll know it when it happens to you, and you'll know it when you see it, which is why some of us responded to Vivekananda's coming. And we're still doing that. As he brought the color, see, of wisdom with him. Renunciation with wisdom. See. Jnana, karma, sannyasa, yoga. Everything you do is going to be based on the Dharma. You see, that wisdom is going to make your karma neutralized. your actions pure. It's going to right the boat. You keep the boat in the water, Sri Ramakrishna say. You don't let water in the boat. Is there something you don't understand about that statement, world? You see? So if you do get water in the boat, then start bailing. Early would be better, or some scars can form. So my favorite, Bhranti Darshana. That is, Bhranti Darshana means deluded seeing. Deluded path. You're not seeing correctly from the mind. The mind has the ability to clarify everything, but you're not letting it do its work. Remember, the mind is fourfold, so your intellect will have to be honed. Your ego will have to be deflated. Your thoughts will have to become buoyant, as Sri Ramakrishna said, and your dual mind will have to be turned single. Because if you're an I, be single, you shall know the truth. So the antaha karana, the inner cause of everything, needs to be reinformed and reformed. So if you're going to be a fire-darting reformer, start there, not at the moral level. You forgive people their sins like Christ did, and know that they were under an evil influence, you see. And go to their mind and appeal to it, see, like I'm doing. Take the Dharma, see. When Moses went up on the mountain and saw the burning bush, as soon as he left, all the people started dancing around the golden calf, partying. Right? Party time, Moses is gone. He's up there having a vision. What a fool. So what did God tell him? Moses said, I have a headache. These people are driving me crazy. And God said, here, take 2 stone tablets and call me in the morning. So if you have a headache with your life and with society and with family, then take the Dharma. Those are the commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill. See? Thou shalt not bear false testimony. On and on, you see. Those are good commandments to live by. But then you will get off the moral wheel and you'll find out there's a higher teaching that God intends, as it were, and that's called the Dharma. All errant thoughts are liberated in the Dharmakaya, the body of the Buddhist teachings, the body of India's teachings. So all errant thoughts are liberated. If you do that, then you think any of this will happen? You must go to the source, to the hub, and correct, you see, your thinking process, and watch. It may take a couple years when the karmas begin to thin out. And I had someone sitting right here in this room with me a couple days ago saying, I just realized after this retreat that we went through in Seattle last weekend that several things that were really bothering me in my life are now gone. They're gone, utterly gone. I woke up this morning and my ignorance was gone, utterly gone. 3 times it was gone, at all 3 levels. So I don't have to deal with that anymore. I don't have to take pills or take up some sort of inferior cyclic thing that's just going to bring me back to dredging it up and causing more thought forms to cluster around it. It's called a hridaya granthi, or a anagranthi, you see. So to diffuse all this bucket of nails called the mind, right? I was thinking about that. One of my students, is on a construction site, you see, and speaking to me about workplace. And, I didn't get to finish that house because it just poured here and rained in Portland for months. Everything got wet. So I was thinking of this bucket of nails that was out there on the construction site, and it just started pouring rain, you see, and you just left it there. Maybe you covered it and the wind blew it off. Filled up with water. Brand new nails, brand new bucket. Come back after the rainy season and They're all rusted. Not only they're rusted, they formed a mass, you see. That's what I thought of when I thought of these complexes in the mind that are crystallized. See. These samskaras can get crystallized around each other. It's not just one you're talking about. Oh, I have a samskara for the desire for rebirth. That's a good one. The desire to be reborn on earth, to experience the same things over and over again. I have a samskara for that. See, I have attachment there at the life force level. I think life force is it, you see. I want to do everything. I want to eat, I want to drink, I want to smoke, I want to take drugs, I want to love and get emotionally dissatisfied. All of that is like my mead, you see. I like that. The soul likes that, see. So I have a samskara around that to come back and do that again and again. But that's going to hook up soon with another samskara. See? And those two with a third. Pretty soon you've got a bucket of rusty nails. And that's not a pleasant experience. See these people that afflicted. Mental retardation comes from that, see, eventually. And you can't work it out, not in that lifetime. That's an arrow shot out of the bow, as Ram says. You're going to have to love that person enough. Some person is going to have to love them unconditionally. And so in the next lifetime, when that samskara has a chance of being broken apart, the first thing they'll remember is someone loved me, right? When there's no space in the mind, there's just rusty nails, and all of a sudden death makes a hole in that, at least for a moment. The first thing that crowds in is someone loved me, right? Someone truly loved me. And therefore they can form a life and begin to get rid of the rest of the collection of rusty nails. So this is all cause and effect, lifetime to lifetime, reincarnation, karma-based, dharma. See? It's not the absolute truth that some people are rushing to, the pseudo-Advaitas. Oh, I'm pure and I'm perfect. End of story. You don't even know the kingdoms of heaven within you, and you're already jumping to the Almighty Father. Or if you do know the kingdoms of heaven within you, you're restricting them to heaven with a lower H. And you don't know that it all connects up with beyond the ancestors and angels to the gods and goddesses. You don't know anything about the gods and goddesses. Oh, I think I won't believe in them. Just because Rome and Greece and India and Japan called them by different names. So I think I'll just throw the whole mess out, you see. So then I'm born in a culture that has no cosmology. And then I feel incomplete, insecure and so forth. So I have to go running about, looking for some other ideology from another country. I'm borrowing it, you see. What kind of a predicament is that to have fallen into? You see? To be up a creek without a paddle, as they say. See? So, intellectual unclarity is very, very unfortunate, because everything inward and outward is going to be clouded. The intellect won't see beyond itself. And you know how the ego acts when it gets a hold of that kind of intellect. And then everything outward is going to be a risky proposition at best. Very risky. Like water on a lotus leaf, Shankara says. That's why Kamalakanta sings in that vein all the time. Shukir Vashana Karo Arkadin. Shukir Vashana Karo Arkadin. Taji Anyobo Kali Kalibo Anobo Janobo Jadin. O Tui Taji Anyobo Kali Kalibo Anobo Janobo Jadin. Shukir Vashana Karo Arkadin. Shukir Vashana Karo Arkadin. So, how long will you cling to this empty desire for earthly happiness? Give up these vain thoughts and idle talk, and for as many days as that are left to you in this life, chant Kali, Kali, Kali. So don't leave a toehold for any other thought but Kali. See? You have to know what I'm saying here. I mean, they asked Holy Mother, do you always think of Brahman? And she said, no, how is that possible? There's this work to do. But she said, any time I want, I can bring my Atman out and look at it and say, I am that, and put it back in and hide it away from the world. So she is holding two ideals, but not simultaneously equally at the same time. When she meditates, she is God. She is goddess, you see. And when she's working in the world, she's working in the world for service of God and mankind. And so those two ideals she can balance, you see. So when you say Kali, Kali, Kali all the time, you can't meditate on her in silence for 24 hours a day. You can't be in Nirvikalpa Samadhi all the time. You're going to have to come down. Sri Ramakrishna said, bird flies high in the sky, but it'll have to rest on a branch eventually. So you have to leave that branch for yourself to come down and feel fine about being at that level. You have to adjust yourself. When consciousness shifts, adjust without grasping. We had that teaching in the Mahamudra, Tibetan teaching last week on retreat. So when consciousness tends to shift, you should be there for it. See, some people's consciousness shifts and they're left in a lurch. They're amazed, or amazed means, wow, that's beautiful. Oh, it's gone again. See, or they're completely thrown off balance and have a hard time getting on balance again because they haven't accustomed themselves to that kind of shift. You want to be there for that shift and gracefully shift with it without clinging. You see, without clinging to the station you just left or clinging to the one you just arrived at. Because your Atman is never a station or a place in time or a moment in space or a shift or a movement in consciousness. Consciousness is always free of those. You remind yourself again and again of that, you see. And don't allow a toehold for anything else to get in. The theme of today. Just think toehold when you go out today or tomorrow. If you stub your toe even, think toehold. What else? Ego-based fears and doubts. Oh my. Philosophical quandaries and subtle spiritual inabilities. These are really pretty much drawn from, in part, from the Antaryayas, or the Vikshepas of yoga, the 9 of them. 3 physical, and 3 mental, and 1 intellectual, and the rest spiritual. The spiritual ones are backsliding, and this insecurity he's just talking about. That, you make a run at a higher level of consciousness, and you fail. And you keep doing that, and you keep falling back, so you build up some scar of failure at the spiritual level. Oh, I can't do it. Just like teaching the kids at grade school, you see. Some of them are saying, give me that, and others saying, I can't do it. You see, they're defeated before they even get started. So did God bless those child that have abilities, and he cursed the ones without? Or did the devil get in there somehow? Or was it their past lifetimes? The way they're born, because they passed away in a weak state, or they passed away strong, or an admixture thereof. See, sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. So all of this comes forth in the intellect, and at a very high level it can manifest itself. See, I'm just living a basic life, and I'm going along, and I'm no one special, so forth and so on. Then I meet a guru, and the Dharma is given to me, and I have this great opportunity, but those very same insecurities and inabilities that were there in your life that made you not so special all of a sudden translate to your spiritual life. And you feel not so special there, too. See? So, yes, no toeholds, please. Make them fingernail holds and climb if you have to, but no toeholds for any of these grunties. So this is the teaching of grunti. At the bottom there you see Samadhina anena samastavasana grantir vinasho akilya karma nashaha destroy all the knots in your being caused by desire-based actions, internal and external, through the practice and attainment of samadhi. Shankara in the Vivekachudamani brings that forth. So you want to practice samadhi. You want to assume samadhi. See, even if you haven't attained it yet, or maybe you think I'm not special enough to have it, assume it, you see. I'm now in samadhi. I'm sitting like a statue for 700 years. No one can bother me. Make your hour 700 years and sit there still, without moving, without allowing a toehold for any insecurity or any of your past errors and mistakes. Be perfect in that hour. See? And then create a samskara for that. You created enough samskaras against it, so why not create a samskara for it? To be your friend. Oh, Mother gave me a human body. She gave me a good teacher, and she gave me a desire to be free. But I didn't realize in the end. I didn't get samadhi. I didn't have realization. Why? Because I didn't have the friendship of my own mind. It wasn't on my side. See? Oh, every song in India you hear about starts out, oh mind. It doesn't start out, oh my body, oh my emotions, oh my prana. This is insentient things. It starts out, oh mind, because mind is that hub for potential sentiency, you see. It's insentient and dual by nature, but it has that ability to hold consciousness. We're not talking about the brain here, because the brain is where you'll find most of these, you see. But mind has this very high capacity, you see, of things. And yes, they're mixed, but separate the wheat from the chaff, and you'll find the mind on your side to be a very powerful ally, and will get you into Brahman. That's how she says it. The mind is very important at this stage, my child, Holy Mother said, so it will eventually get you into the Brahman state. So you can't toss it away as if it doesn't mean, oh, I think I'll just dance and sing. The mind's nothing, you see. Your ignorance is still dancing and singing with you. Inside, you see. It's like saying the body is going to be free of excrement, you know, when I dance and sing. But you're just a shitbag dancing around there. On the physical level, that's what you are. Mucus is coming out. Salt water's coming out. Earwax is forming. You know how problematic earwax is. 2 drops of earwax fell into the ocean of Akarnava and gave Vishnu a really hard time. 2 demons came up, Madhu and Kataiba, out of that earwax. And he had to battle them 1,000 years. Then he finally had to ask Mother, what do I do with these 2? They're beating me. See, so be careful of your parental exultations. Parental exudations, you see. Be careful of this body that's no better than an outcast. And dance and sing in the spirit, you see, with a divine body. That will be your positive thoughts that you'll take with you into kirtan, hopefully, someday, even maybe in the West, we know. Now the next sloka, and we have just enough time to announce it before we take our break, is number 79. Dissolve the self in the Supreme Self as the space in the pot gets dissolved in infinite space. Then, as the infinite, be silent forever. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, a glass gurgles as you fill it, but then it stops when it's filled. So get this fulfillment. They've mentioned it twice now in the last several slokas. You want fulfillment, not fanning the flames of desire, and satiation never comes. You want to be finally whole, because that's who you are. That's how you are. That's your true nature, and you're finding it, right? You're having to adjust and grow, as it were, even though the growth is illusory, because you're already that. This is why I mentioned the pseudo-Advaitas, you see. You can't just jump to the chase in the top step and forget the middle steps. You won't make a good teacher that way. If you can even hold a higher step, you see, that will be to be seen in the next lifetime. Because they say this chakra, you see, is very disorienting to arrive at. And many so-called wise people have turned into fools and kooks when they've arrived there and written strange books about all sorts of weird phenomena. But we see Sri Ramakrishna, we just read him before the live streaming came on. We were reading the gospel here, friends, and up it went. You see the Kundalini. And as consciousness arrived, each of those blossoms, each of those lotuses blossom. He didn't describe any weird things going on. And he wasn't disoriented here, he went here. See? Well, yes, he's a past master, or beyond a past master. But this is your exemplar, right? So it's very easy to get disoriented at these higher levels of consciousness, and you could fall at the time of your death, and then be reborn confused. See? Who knows that your pretense wouldn't give rise to something like this. So those who say they know, don't know. Those who say they don't know, probably know. It's out of the Upanishads. Of course, there is that statement, I know, and I know that I know. And freedom from not knowing has been granted to me by Kali, Kali, Kali. And here we will take our break. You have returned to the SRV channel, where we broadcast all the Dharma all the time, although time is an illusion in Vedanta. There's just one eternal moment. We are just a group of people that happen to try and live in that eternal moment, which is, of course, different than the past, present, and the future. There's that beautiful chant where the Upanishad states, "Meditate upon the Lord as thine own self, seated in your heart, who appears to you as the world, and who is the ultimate cause or source of all living beings. And then perceive that one as the primeval cause to the relationship between matter and spirit. And that's the partless divine entity who transcends the three phases of past, present, and future." So the present isn't lauded that highly in Vedanta. The eternal moment is much more the point. So, sitting in that eternal moment, the seers have perceived the divine self, whether they called it Atman or Paramatman or Brahman or Allah or Buddha nature, Pragyaparam in Buddhist case. They've seen that one indivisible and all-pervasive light. And that, of course, is the light in which the Dharma grows. It's also the light which comes off of the word, Om, as pure intelligence. So you want to nourish yourself at that source, that fount of bliss and immortality. All of the various poems and scriptures of the different religious traditions of the world are always talking about that one. And the many come out of it, no doubt, but the dynamics of the coming and the going, Vedanta explains very nicely as sort of dreamlike or illusory, that events and phenomena pass all the time, but the one remains the same, which is, I think, something we will look at here. But if you want to read what a Western savant said about that, at the bottom there, "The one remains, the many change and pass, heaven's light forever shines, earth's shadows fly. Life, like a dome of many-colored glass, stains the white radiance of eternity." Percy Shelley, of course, in that beautiful poem. My teacher, Swami Sheshananda, liked that very much and used to paraphrase it in his talks. Life, a many-colored dome of glasses, he would say. So that's the idea. The mind becomes this crystal or this dome in which the light of pure light of reality flows through and gets stained. That is, it becomes what Tantra calls from the worlds of Shuddha, pure, to Shuddha Shuddha, mixed pure and impure, all the way down to the worlds of Ashuddha, impure. Like here, this is an impure world. Impure means farthest away from the source. Doesn't mean necessarily horrible or any other connotation like that, although it certainly can be that for many souls. So we want to keep that idea of the Dharma growing in the light prevalent in the mind, and also know that that is happening in the mind all the time. Make sure that it has a place to implement itself, you see, so you're always aware. And if you keep that light present, as we've been saying in the past, no toehold will be allowed for sleep and forgetfulness. Now, just wanted to refer to that because we might get to it in this half, but we want to go more towards this chart on your right for the new sloka that we want to take up, number 7. Dissolve the mind, dissolve the self in the Supreme Self, as the space in the pot gets dissolved in infinite space. Then, as the infinite, be silent forever, O sage. So, sages and seers are rather different than saints. Saints usually proceed by the bhakti path and devotion and so forth, and they have their own level of greatness. But in India, the point has pretty much always been the sage and the seer of wisdom, or the third eye, those who ascend to a very high level close to formlessness and are therefore able to see the truth and dispense it to others to set them free. So sometimes those vocations, if you will, the spiritual vocations are blended in a soul, like say in Swami Vivekananda, where you have all three. Just a devotee with intense love for Guru and country and God, of course, first and foremost, and then this unrivaled, unparalleled wisdom that of a non-dual level, and everything, a really good ability to bring out even the qualified non-dual teachings, and even come down, as he said, to the level of duality and speak to people on all levels. He said, once he said, and I paraphrase, I'll come anywhere and speak to anyone about the Dharma, about Brahman, anyone on any level, but if I had my preference, I would speak, I would talk only to the lovers of God. That would be my preference. They sort of missed the point. He called it, "You have not caught my fire." Both in India and America, he wrote in one of his letters, "You have not caught my fire yet," back to his monk brothers. You give me fame and you give me accolades and so forth, but I don't want those. I want thousands of people coming to the Lord. So this is the return of religion with a capital R. So we know we have a absolutely sincere and fit and long-awaited vehicle in Swami Vivekananda. And if you even want to sing about it, you can, in so many ways. Just in his brief time since he's been away, you'd sing something like this. And it's in accord with this teaching of the empty pot filled with air. You could sing this. Ushaha kalepade namaskritya shishya labirandhyanyatam iti shrada lavaha Sameta samukhe dadeta darshanam vivekanandate prabhati pranjalihi narendra shashave narendra yovane narendra kridane narendra Shikshane, Narendra Palane, Narendra Harpane, Vivekanandate, Prabhate Pranjalihi, Vivekanandate, Prabhate Pranjalihi. There are some 13 verses to that hymn written by Swami Harshananda of the Ramakrishna order. This one says, "Grant thy blessings on all beings, Vivekananda, and bestow upon us unbroken communion with the Supreme Being. Thy devoted and faithful devotees are gathering at thy feet to receive your incomparable benediction. They are infinitely blessed to bow before thee and attain liberating darshan. In this auspicious dawn of illumination, O Vivekananda, we offer you our everlasting salutations." So next time someone says, "Good morning," you can say that instead. May the auspicious dawn of illumination ever be yours. In an earlier voice, he talks about Aruna, the Deva of dawn, who grants morning's first light, offers you his obeisances. So morning is coming at the behest of Swami Vivekananda's realization of his eternal self. Then all your days and all your nights and so forth are passing in him. See, it's this Nityasiddha who has come to us and been America's first seer. We finally have one. We had to borrow from another country, but he's not thinking in terms of races, genders, countries, and religions. He's knowing that the Atman is in everyone and everything, so he comes amongst us with that kind of light. Beautiful hymn that we often sing on his puja day and so forth. And being reminded to us by this teaching of Ram in the Hridayam. He says here, I shall tell you the truth about Paramatman, Atman, and Anatman. When you give the teaching of Atman, then sometimes the Buddhist schools would say, you mean Anatman? There is no self. We say, no, Anatman is ego. There's no ego self. That's not real. But there is a supreme self. Buddha called it pragyaparam, this supreme intellect or intelligence. And he also called it Tathagatagarbha, a mass of consciousness. So he just didn't want to speak about a form in terms of Buddha nature or Brahman. He wanted to keep your mind on the formless for a change. It's always considering form. Dual mind is always considering forms. Names and forms and time and space and cause and effect. Maya. So he wants you to have this higher perspective. So I will tell you the truth about Paramatman, the Supreme Soul, Atman, which is with all of us covered by 5 sheaths, and Anatman, which is basically the non-self or the ego. Like the sky, which has its 3 divisions, being all-pervasive, 1, associated with objects, 2, and reflected in a water tank, 3, so too is consciousness. Pure consciousness associated with the intellect and reflected in the intellect. So, making these triple distinctions is going to be very helpful for us. And so I took a image of him and Sita and Lakshmana. They've been exiled right into the forest due to circumstances. I mean, the Gita has its circumstances with the 2 armies and the war and everything. The same in the tale of Ramayana and so forth, that basically Ram and Sita have been exiled to the forest, and he's looking for Sita, who has been stolen away by Ravana, and the great historical, spiritual historical epic, and the teachings in that. So there they are, in very young stage of their life, in the forest, and he's giving them teachings about this Atman. There you see in the 3 circles, the jiva, animals, insects, and plants, are all reflected consciousness, like water being reflected, like sky being reflected in a water tank. You look in there and you see the clouds and you see your face and so forth. Reflected consciousness, not the real consciousness there. That is not reflected, that's authentic. And then you see appearances in the buddhi or in the intellect as associated consciousness. So that would be there in Sita's mind, as it were, in Lakshmana's mind, right close there. You see they're seeing everything, and the buddhi is coloring it. You see, it's associated consciousness. The higher and more perfect the mind becomes, the more it sees of consciousness. And if it falls off those higher trajectory, then it will see more and more of the world. It will see more and more, just like all the way back to reflected consciousness, like reflected deer, reflected tree, reflected body, reflection sky, reflection earth, reflection rocks, all those listed there. And they will take those to be real, you see. And so it'd be very, very hard to assign absolute reality to any of those things, whether they're reflected consciousness or whether they're consciousness associated with the intelligence. They're all getting colored in one way or another. But here in the middle, Brahman, witness consciousness, pure consciousness, that's right there at the heart of Ram, you see. That's why sometimes we sing to him so well. Shri Ramachandra Kripalu Bhajamana Arna Bhavabhaya Dharanam Tava Kanchalochana Kancha Mukakara Kancha Karadmandaranam Shri Ram, 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 Shri Ramachandra Kripal Bhajamana Arana Bhavabhaya Dharanam. and other beautiful hymns to Ram, just ecstatic songs in India. And still millions of followers to this very, very ancient avatar who was even prior to the Krishna manifestation. So very beloved, and the Ramayana just read by millions still, and Sita being looked at in India as the most pure and chaste of all women, even tested by fire. And of course all the characters of the Ramayana that gathered around, like Lord Vashishta and the teachings he gave to the Yamram. All of this connected in history, itihasa it's called in India, scriptural history, to this long-lived heritage and ancestral lineage, all the way back to the sun gods, the solar line it's called, and Swayambhuva, and the first great minds of the Manus, the great 10 Manus and so forth. Just really beautifully described. It transcends evolution. You see, you're thinking in terms of 4,320,000,000 years in which man on human body only appears in a few millennia of that. So you're thinking just in this physical cycle, but you're not seeing, this great mind of God, in which this is only a tempest in a teapot. 4,320,000,000 years is called a blink of the eye of Lord Brahma. See, it's like we were all just how did they say it? A glitter in your mother's eye or something. See, before you were born, you were just a glimmer in your mother's eye, something like that, you see. So that's all of this that's happened. That's why I said everything leading up to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother's birth and Jairambati and Kamarpakur, everything that happened after, get thee behind me. This is the pillar. Coming again and again, as we're becoming aware of it again and again, and we lose track of it over thousands of years. So he has to come from age to age and resurrect the new dharma so that we can know the truth and be set free. And we won't fall back into Maya, allow toeholds for forgetfulness, you see. The Upanishads will be there too, to teach us. Now there at the bottom of this easily digestible chart is this quote. By Ram, ignorant persons with distorted understanding cast superimposed divisions over the partless, unchanging witness consciousness, like the sense of agency that is only reflected in the buddhi, like my acts. These are my acts, and as soon as you know yourself, you see, I don't have any acts. Those are all Divine Mother's will. These movements and partitions are all assumed by reflected consciousness. The existence of the jiva is also assumed by it. But all reflections are illusory. Jiva and buddhi are false separations. Jiva is the embodied soul, and buddhi is your intelligence, you see, your intellect. Those are all ultimately false separations. Only Brahman is partless and indivisible. Divisibility in Brahman is due only to its adjuncts. Its limiting adjuncts, like earth, air, fire, water, ether, tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, smelling, all of those in a dream, the fourfold mind, all of those are limiting adjuncts over Brahman. Somebody asked me yesterday, one of the students after class, and he said, what's the point of the Leela? What's the point of divine play? I don't see the point. We just come, we go, we come, we go. Isn't it rather like samsara? I don't see any ultimate point to it. Why should God come and play and sport? I said, well, according to Gaudapada, he agrees with you. He said, God does not sport. He does not come to earth. He's aptakama. He's free of all desires. Why should that Brahman, actually beyond he and she and beyond gender, want to come and sport in forms? So the Tantrists like that idea, you see, the idea of God sporting in forms. But there are other good ways of explaining the Leela. And of course we know Sri Ramakrishna's Leela was very divine. He suffered like the rest of us, broke his arm once and lost a nephew and grieved for a day and then was over it. So we know that when God comes into the human context, there's going to be all that pathos, you see. In fact, he himself said, Brahman itself weeps when caught in the net of its own Maya. Brahman itself weeps when caught in the net of its own Maya. That's important, that Maya comes out of Brahman. It's not a separate force like an incarnate devil or something. And if it's hard for you to understand, then you think there's poison in the snake. But a snake doesn't die because of that. So inside of the formless Brahman is the potential for all these forms and for all their experiences. And call that divine play if you want, but you can also transcend it. So I told this person about Videha Mukti, about souls that came from Brahman, had one lifetime, saw everything that there was to see in one lifetime, and gave it up and never came back again. Why come back? So it's a good point. Because you come back to help suffering beings? Well, let's see here. Some suffering is necessary to help you get you out of your problems, you see. If you've taken on a body, then they're not going to come back and take away your unnecessary sufferings. I mean, your necessary sufferings. They're going to come back maybe and help you out of your unnecessary sufferings, which are dissuading you from the point, right? Also, if the world of name and form and time and space is all unreal, then the sufferings must be unreal too, and so must the karmas. And so, what am I doing here, you see? When I come back, they crucify me or poison me, and only a small percentage of them follow me, and the rest remain the way they were, you see. And this is going on and on forever. So in order to allow certain beings their fulfillment of their desire to be free, then we'll keep making that appearance. Maybe it's not divine sport to them. Maybe it's a sacrifice. As Krishna says in the Gita, I am the Adiyagya. I am the supreme sacrificer. It's like giving yourself for the world. Jesus wasn't the only one that did that. Great souls have been doing that for all times. Unless you want to make the point that Jesus is Krishna and Krishna is Jesus, and those two are Buddha, and those three are Muhammad, and so forth. There's really no difference in the soul because they've all realized the Father, or Buddha nature, or Muhammad, or Allah, or Brahman, and all distinctions disappear there, right? So why should there be religions, and why should there be separate beings? Why should there be many avatars? You don't understand formless consciousness yet, and its all-pervasive and homogeneous nature, right? Think about that. All-pervasive and homogeneous individual nature. You're thinking from the individual standpoint, but it's at the indivisible standpoint. So you're going to have to merge, see, like a hailstone in an ocean, Shankar says. And like we said last half, assume the position of samadhi. Let's see what it would be like to be formless, timeless, deathless, birthless, free of suffering, beyond time, beyond space, formless, blissful. Let's see what it would be like to be beyond all dualities and not in need of the Dharma anymore. See? My teacher used to say that if we knew who we were, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, peace be upon him, he used to say, if we knew who we were, we would never need to do sadhana. I saw him walking around in a single state all the time. He didn't come down and meditate with us and do anything like that, you see. He was just living in this realized state. It was all perfectly pure and simple to him. It just maintained it, and he'd gotten into, if you will, a habit of realization. I've developed a habit of suffering, but some beings have developed a habit of realization. They prefer that to suffering. But got to say, some people prefer suffering. They actually do. Swami Vivekananda said that. You don't understand this world, do you? You don't understand that some people prefer to suffer. So until they want to get out of their suffering, you can't help them. And we're talking about these red spots all over the street in Calcutta, in India, and so forth. People spit out their beetle juice. They've chewed this nut, you see, and spit it out. See these people with red stained teeth. So Holy Mother said, they chew betel nut until the teeth stains red. And they see that, and then they won't give it up. So they keep chewing it and their teeth fall out. Pretty soon their smile is all crooked and missing teeth, and they still won't give it up. Then they gum the nuts. See, it's not that addictive, betel nut. It's not like, say, cigarettes. But they get this habit, and so they'll never give it up until they themselves decide to give it up. Nothing can dissuade them. Avatar of the three worlds would come forward and say, we found out that betel nut keeps you from enlightenment. And they still wouldn't give it up, you see. They'd probably ask, but does it increase my suffering? Oh, I'll take it. I'll keep chewing it then, you see. So that's something to understand about the world. When Buddha said there is suffering, you have to understand that doesn't just mean, oh shoot, I have to forbear suffering here. It means that suffering's in the very nature of things. And it extends more than just beyond sticking your hand in the fire and getting burned, cause and effect. It extends to families who want to be reborn and reborn again, hashing up the same old karma all the time and even adding to it and enjoying the emotional turmoil, you see, that comes from it. That's their meed. They won't be happy. It's like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the accountant, does settle some accounts, 9 to 5, right? Then he goes home at night, he tries to sleep and he can't. So he has to settle a few more accounts. And when he does that, then he can go to sleep, you see. So they can't stop thinking about it. See, that's what they do. They develop a habit, and even though it's all just numbers on paper, it doesn't mean anything in the end. They still have to do it. See. So poor, unfortunate souls. But Mother's precious spiritual children, they've caught a glimpse of the truth, and they've caught that refined aroma of the mind that is always thinking of the Dharma. And they're getting attracted to souls like that. Even after they've passed decades, hundreds of years away, they're looking back and saying, that soul is mine. You see, I am one with that soul. That's my exemplar. And I said, if you have to say, that's my savior, well, not quite as lucky or fortunate, as it were, but you want to look at that as an exemplar and free yourself. In this very life, they say. So this is a rather pregnant and somewhat abstruse quote, but you look at it in terms of his teachings of the 3 times of Atman, Anatman, Atman, and Paramatman, you begin to see reflected consciousness and consciousness happening in the buddhi, you see, and then consciousness as itself in the heart, the Paramatman. And you can see how Maya chops things up and presents them to you in divisions. And it's your business really to get rid of those divisions, remove those lines of demarcation. So Swami Sharananda said once, my teacher's teacher, show me the line of demarcation where matter ends and spirit begins, or where spirit begins and matter ends. Isn't it just all one seamless consciousness? And something is causing divisions in it? And that something probably isn't an insentient nature or an incarnate devil, but it's more likely my own divisive mind, the tendencies of my own divisive mind. Like Ramakrishna saying, these names, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, are barriers to man's understanding. We should do away with them. And Swamiji came back to clarify that. He said to the American people later, to Parliament, he said, or in one of his letters, he said, we must do away with Bible, with Gita, and with Quran, but not by just throwing them out. We must study them first, understand them, and then go beyond them. So it's just like these steps I'm talking about. You just don't jump from earth to Brahman, you see, like some pseudo-Advaitas might try and do. Good luck with that. But you go stage by stage, step by step. And there was one very important saying about that, called avastas, or stages that you graduate. The quote is, enlightenment dawns on the mind by stages. Who said that? Shri Ramachandra Kripalu Bhajamana Arna Bhavadaya Daruna. Enlightenment dawns on the mind by stages. So it's not Sri Ramachandra Kripalu, he's full of grace. See? So Bhajamana, my mind, is devoted to him. And he's full of compassion. So if we take that as an exemplar, not just through sweet music, but through the Adhyatma Ramayana and the Upanishads and so forth, which are the teachings of the Dharma that he and others, or the same soul, if you will, keeps coming back and transmitting to us, then we will be free. You see, we will live a dharmic life, a divine life, or no life at all. You have those three choices if you're a devotee. It's a dharmic life for me, raising a dharmic family, giving my dharma to the children so that they'll always be free. Or it's a divine life where I probably don't have any family and I'm just a sage, a seer, a saint out in the forest, being free and expressing myself. Or no life at all, like a Videha Mukti, who comes out of Brahman, checks it all out once, disappears back into Brahman, never to come again. I have no hope for me for the world forevermore. I'm gone, and I'm gone forever. Who said that? Lord Buddha. So we're to think that Buddha never came back, that his emanations came back. There's a great song in India that has this as no more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my Divine Mother. So it's like you can send a part of yourself. See, like when Paul saw Jesus in Damascus along the road, that wasn't Jesus. It was Jesus sending him a vision on the physical form from his subtle body. See, you could have gone up there and waved your hand through his body like in a ghost, you see. And he has his vision, and no one else saw it. You see, there, don't you see him? He's right there. You're mad, Paul. And so is John and Ringo and George. So when Moses saw the burning bush, same thing, you see. So it's an intended reflection in the intellect, right? If your intellect is very high, then you might have these visions even here on earth. You might see things that others don't. But you should never take it to be real. See, it's a signal, it's a message for you, probably just for you. And it's steering you towards something that's beyond form. It's beyond anything reflected. That's why Ram wants to clarify this for Sita and Lakshman, and saying that neither the buddhi nor the jiva is real. These are reflections in consciousness. So a word to the wise, as they say. Now, that was an easy read. Now let's look at this chart here on your right. Having become the self-luminous substratum as being, reject both the macrocosm and the microcosm, which are both abodes of impurities. So I was teaching a class at prisons recently called just neutralizing karmas through sadhana. So you want impurities don't go away any other way than through the combination of dharma and sadhana. You want to get rid of them for all time, not just in this lifetime for a while, or not just come back on you in a few years. So neutralizing karma through sadhana. So I took up the three. Is it here? It is. How about that? I took up the three bodies chart, which is an old war horse for all of us. I've been teaching it for 21 years and showing it again and again, so we know that we have more than one body, a gross body. We also have a subtle body and a causal body. So you know the teachings. I'm not going to go through them. Someone's already yawning over there. You see, so I taught it in this way. That basically, if you were to go through all of these in your mind, you'd find these are where the impurities are lodged. These are tattvas, and they're in the mind, you see. Deities are also in the mind, but let's, leave those aside for a minute. There is a god of water and a god of earth and all that, but let's leave the deity part away from it, right? Upasana. Let's just take up the tattvas, because that's what Samkhya and Vedanta is good for. So if you were to meditate on earth, air, fire, water, and ether, and you mastered water in your mind, found out that your fear of it was because you drowned in a past lifetime. Then you've made connections to your past, you see, your important past that you've forgotten when you were born. And so you find you could say right there, oh, let's just put a little dark spot right there by water, you see, because that's in my mind and it's an impurity, right? And nobody else is going to remove it, probably. You could say, oh, I'm afraid of water, and they'll say, well, that's too bad, I swim all the time. See, they're selfish, right? They'll take you down to the water if they're well-intentioned and try and shove you in. But that's not going to get rid of your fear of water. Probably make it worse. I always say, my two Labradors, right, when I was younger, one loved the water and one didn't. One would not get near it, and the other would jump in, even with ferocious waves, and waves in Hawaii can get ferocious. So throw a coconut in, this one's after it. Doesn't matter. Death-defying, you see, because you can die in those shore breaks. People have. I've pulled people out of shore breaks before, as a surfer when I was young. Pulled people out of those. Japanese people set up their picnics too close to the ocean, and we'll watch that, turn their heads, and expensive Japanese cameras and baskets full of food and everything gone, and they're gone with it, you see. No, help. So this is no joke out there to keep your, don't allow any toeholds for forgetfulness, you see, when you're on the North Shore beaches. So anyway, yada yada, as they say. My dog would jump in, not afraid of death, just throw itself into those waves. And the other one would just cower. See? Over time, by association, this one got used to that and would actually venture up to the water and run away when the waves came and venture up. So starting to entertain the fact that maybe I can do this, you see. And over time, we had it swimming Waimea Bay with us in the morning. We'd go down, swim this like half-mile long bay and back with the two dogs swimming along. So it was doing that with us. Of course, you didn't want it too near you, or it would use you as an island. See? Get away. Scratch you. But getting over the fear of a thing then will take more exposure. So my point here being, again, that fire, earth, maybe you died in a landslide. Whatever the case, you have these fears and these little impurities through lifetimes that are stored up, and you don't know about it in this lifetime because you don't know your last lifetimes. This is a real problem, and it's a problem all the way into our psychotherapy. That is into psychology in the West. We've got to break through that. The inside-the-box scenario has got to be busted apart so that we can understand and solve our problems, not just in this lifetime, because they'll come back in another, like the heaven-aspiring soul. At the philosophical level, we're going to have to say, well, there's a doorway out of heaven. You're always singing about the doorway to heaven, but you don't know anything about the doorway out of heaven. See? She's buying a doorway to heaven or something, they sing, right? Some rock song you heard, something. But you have to know that at the highest level of heaven, there's a doorway out beyond heaven, into the causal regions. That's where your causal body is. It's where the seers and saints are, and sages. This is where Dalai Lama holds his subtle body when he wants to come back, his form, his essence, when he wants to come back to earth 14 times. So they don't have to get trapped in heaven, you see, in a loop, being recycled, like the plastic bottles outside, you see, in the garbage can. They can be free. Even inside of form, they can be free. So again, my point, the higher you go in this meditation, the more you'll find these subtle problems. Say, let's find it in the prana. Do I have to go back? See? What subtle impurities are in the prana body? And how you need to get rid of them with the mind body, mental body, by making these connections. So this is all part or inferred by these teachings. You see, dissolve the self in the supreme self. Here's the self. 3 of them, and you dissolve them into the Supreme Self, the Paramatman. Go back to the last chart, you dissolve the reflected consciousness into your intellect, and you dissolve the intellect into yourself, your Paramatman. Paramatman, Atman, Anatman. Wherever you look, there's this teaching. It's all about dissolution of the mind stream, it's been called, you see. So this is what you need to do, and if you do this every day, in your meditation, then you won't allow a foothold for forgetfulness, or even a toehold. this will be a part of your practice, and it will become the habit. And you will live like my teacher lived, free of ignorance all the time. It won't even require effort on your part. Does it sound good, you see, to be free of those things in your mind? What to speak of in your emotions and in your prana, your energy, and in your body. And at the time, the end of your body's demise, then you can just give it up, slough it off like a snake does its skin, with the least amount of problem. And if you want to take on another body, do so. Or if you want to just be a videha mukti and see it once and give it up, you can do that too. No lila for me. Thank you very much. I've sported enough. The world is a gymnasium. Flex your muscles and get out. Who said that? It sounds like Vivekananda, doesn't it? So, just referring to that from this sloka, having become the self-luminous substratum as being, that's capitalized, you are pure being, not becoming. Reject both the macrocosm and the microcosm, which are but abodes of impurities. So you'll find impurities on this macrocosm and microcosm is how I fashioned this chart. We've seen it before. It's rather new, but we've seen it. I've put it basically in terms of the supreme knowledge, Paravidya, and the lesser knowledge of Paravidya, like asato ma sadgamoya tamaso ma jyotirgamoya. Let's go from lower truth to higher truth. We've been at lower truth long enough to see that it has impurities in it, and that it's not really leading us to enlightenment. It's leading us to an intellectual frame of reference only. My teacher used to use that phrase all the time. But you must become an illumined soul. You can't remain at the intellectual frame of reference and even understand the Dharma, what to speak of realize the self. See? Even understanding of the Dharma is going to require you to shift your consciousness to a different perspective. Problems created at the physical level cannot be solved at the physical level. See? You must go to the next level to solve them. Because why? Not just because you're going to a higher state of consciousness and you have an advantage. It's because this is where they were formed. Right? They weren't formed here. Not really. Your act formed that part of it, but your thought formed the act, because thought is father to the deed. So this is going to free you to know this, you see. You're already free the minute you entertain the Dharma. The minute you got initiation from your guru, you were already free. But your mind is catching up to this fact. Hopefully it gets a boost, you see, by the mantra, and it can catch up quicker and quicker. Catch me if you can, Maya is saying. You see, that you're pulling a march on it, you see. Pull a march on Maya, Sri Ramakrishna used to say. See, two armies are heading for high ground. You know, whichever one gets there first will get the advantage in the war, right? In the battle, that is. So they both stop for the night, you know, to eat and everything. And the commander of this army says, you know, forget food. You see, we can sleep after we're dead. You see, let's just pull a march on the other army. Let's march all night. Hey, yeah, what a brilliant idea, you see. What a novel idea. So they decide to march, and so they march up and they get higher ground. And of course, they're a little tired, but they have the advantage in the battle and win. So this is what you have to do with the army of Maya. You have to get the army of the goddess on your side. There's stories untold about this, about her battles with the ego and with its minions. Just read the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam or the Chandi. Not what to speak of the Gita and other. There are superior armies here that you want to get on your side. Valmiki says, remember Valmiki got covered with an anthill, didn't he? He sat so long in meditation. Whoosh! See, he woke up out of his meditation and the ants had built a big hill around him, so he's called Valmiki. Lower knowledge taken from books and conventional religious knowledge gleaned from ordinary shastras form two separate hells for beings devoid of higher wisdom. Pretty straightforward, right? Does it remind you of anything? Rejecting conformity with the world, the body, and the Shastras, remove superimposition over the self. So remember yesterday I was talking about the ordinary Shastras and the revealed scriptures. So here it is back at you again in Valmiki's words. Lower knowledge taken from books and conventional religious knowledge gleaned from ordinary Shastras form two separate hells for beings devoid of higher wisdom. So these beings that are coming at you, thumping the Quran, the Bible, or the narrow worshippers in India thumping the Gita, that's a hell they're in. See, they haven't got the universal perspective that sees the Atman in everyone. And this is the advantage that Vedanta is giving them all, if they will just choose it. See? Sanatana Dharma is the eternal religion. See, it was before India was even called India, it was there in the subcontinent. Now there are people nowadays who are calling themselves Sanatanis, and they're very narrow in India. The Swami's warned me about them. He says, well, yeah, I like Sanatana Dharma, that's a great saying. Yes, but Babaji, there's one problem with it. In India recently we've got these cults called Sanatanis, and they've taken this idea of eternal religion and they've narrowed it down so it's only my path is the right path. Does it sound familiar? Not only is it Jesus is the only way, but in India it's like Krishna's the only way. And in one village they'll say Krishna's the only way, and you'll go to the next village and they're worshipping Krishna, and you'll say, great, you're both worshipping Krishna. And this village will say, no, that village is worshipping the wrong Krishna. We're worshipping the right Krishna. So the poor guy can't even stay universal. See? Why do you think he has to come 5 or 500 years? Clear things out. But why is it that they don't listen? Is it this connate ignorance that's just so hard to get rid of? See, why only a few souls are being separated from the chaff? See, why only a few are getting it in this lifetime? The rest of the quote then. Even intelligent beings writhe in these two hells, fixating on wealth, status, and power. So if you want to, the wisdom gotten from books and the wisdom gotten from religious convention, what's their purpose? Wealth, status, and power. Isn't it not obvious? Therefore you should exert inwardly and swiftly attain to transcendent wisdom, taking refuge in the great self, the Paramatman. Exert inwardly. Outwardly, just get enough to satisfy your means, you see. Shankar sings, I just want to work and get enough, from merit and money, enough from just my daily actions, just to, satisfy me day to day, and no more. A parigraha, I won't want to receive anything more. Well, there you see this wonderful collage that was created by an artist friend of mine. Thank you very much to her. I gave her this idea, and she came up with this great cathedral in the sky and superimposed it over space with earth and all that. Used it as a cover for our Nectar magazine in one year's issue. And I said, perfect, later on. This is great for this Paravidya teaching. And remember, we were talking about having become the self-luminous substratum, which would be behind all this. This transcendent light of pure conscious awareness is behind all of this, both in its upper trajectory and its lower trajectory. Its higher wisdom and its lower wisdom. Behind it is transcendent wisdom, you see. So dissolve, reject both macrocosm and microcosm, which are but abodes of impurities. So impurities can be very subtle. They can also be very high. You see, your attachment to heaven and so forth. So you want to make sure that you are the seer of all that, and you know the difference between the seer and the seen. So there you see some of the fun I had with it. See, there's the earth and space from the satellite and so forth. So if I just put the dark half of the earth and the light half of the earth, means, oh great, I can put these dualities, Jyoti on one side, light, Tamishra, darkness on the other. Just doesn't mean physical light and darkness because of lack of sun or presence thereof, but it actually means that the worlds have come from the mind, right? All of you tell me right now, what is the view of the Mahamudra? Yes, all these universes in space and time have come out of the mind. So Jyoti and Tamishra are in that mind. So that's a kind of darkness and light you want to take advantage of. And also, what does it say there? Mithya dristi and mithya chara. Mithya dristi means I'm the seer of ignorance. I see it, you see. I have ferreted it out. I know Maya, you see. Not very well, because it's better not to. But I know about it, you see, and it's allowed me to distance myself from it. As compared to mithyachara, sinful actions, you see. I'm engaging in sinful actions. That is, actions that cause karmas and suffering to myself and to others as a result. Karma Shakti and Karma Para, that is, Karma Shakti would be, of course, realizing and seeing your karmas and doing away with them, and its opposite. Manojaya, victory of the mind. Manoratha, bondage of the mind. Jivan Mukti, a living liberated soul. Jiva Koti, fascination with the individual condition only. Sound familiar? Everyone is out for their own self, right? That nobody thinks about this one self in all. Nir Moha and Moha, freedom from delusion and delusion itself. A nice play there on either side. About the whole chart itself, and more specific to this sloka, look on the left-hand column. There you see aparavidya, and at a certain point, paravidya will kick in, lower knowledge and higher knowledge. Now I must say here that there are some beings, some seers, some teachers who restrict paravidya only for God realization, and everything else is a paravidya. But there are others who think paravidya would be like dharma, would be like higher scripture, revealed scripture. That would fall in the aparavidya realm. And this is kind of what the standpoint of this rishi is taking in the Adhyatma Upanishad. That there is a transcendent light behind even the paravidya. Because wisdom is wisdom, let's face it. So where there's wisdom, there's going to be ignorance. So there's going to be ignorance and knowledge here. There's going to be an ignorance and knowledge here, which means in fine arts, religion, psychology, and on the other side, in the applied arts, in science, in philosophy, morals, and so forth. Don't you think that there are problems in those things? Is it all bright and shiny in psychology? Is it all bright and shiny in religion? No. So even when paravidya starts to kick in and you get to dharma, shuti yukti anubhava, you all should know what that means now, to jnanam, to the forms of God, like the Trinity, then you're finding, even in the avatars and so forth, that these are forms, that you need to use them to get to divine reality. You get to the Father through the Son. And if you don't have the wherewithal to see Jesus when he comes again, then you're not a knower of Jesus, you see. Not like, say, this Nityasiddha along the way, you see. Kali Avatar and so forth. They've seen God. Why, he walked out of the river just the other day and cracked my knuckles. That's basically what he just said. And then he patted me on the back and we laughed outrageously together. If you see God, you think you're going to be all morose. Oh, gee. Or are you going to laugh uproariously like seeing your old friend that you haven't seen for decades, you see? Is there anything negative about that divine being? Or is it just all bliss and divine recognition and tears of love rather than tears of sorrow? And you have to feel that. You have to know that. So then as you go up the spectrum there, you see states. Sabija on one side and samadhi on the other. You see, sabija means seated moods and samadhis, like sampragyata in yoga. And then samadhi and vijnana and highest samadhi, nirvikalpa, or nirbija, beyond seeds, and witness consciousness. See, those things are really reaching the very peak and threshold of paravidya. They're going to launch you into a state which is like, or is being, right? He says here, Having become the self-luminous substratum as being, then reject macrocosm and microcosm. So you're going to have to lift off of that position. Remember again, Mahamudra, when you shift gracefully, easily, without holding or grasping. So when consciousness is time for you, do so. But I could say that if you go into a high state via some reason, and your mind is in a general tamasic state, then you'll be fearful of the light. You'll run away from it like a coward. You'll look back and say, oh, woe is me, I had a chance, you see. But you keep up meditating, and that light appears to you again in a month, a year, 5 years, whatever. And the next time it hits you, your mind's in sattva, and you welcome that. You see. You go to it like a moth to a bonfire, without thinking anything about what went before. So it's very important. It goes back to that teaching about how the mind is a gateway to hell or a gateway to heaven or a doorway to hell. Doorway to hell doesn't mean hell and brimstone to us. It means falling back to lower knowledge. Maybe even into some very covered knowledge, some very ignorant types of states of being. Those are painful. But the doorway to heaven, as I said, there's a doorway to heaven, but there's also a doorway out of heaven, and that's at a very high level, you see, like causal body. You use that every night in deep sleep. You go through that door. You just don't remember it. And you feel very fine in a formless state. But they say cause and effect, right? Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause, no effect. See? So what brings you back from this state is cause. You see, but there's no effect there. You've gotten rid of ego, you've gotten rid of money, you've gotten rid of problems, you've gotten rid of evil children. You've gotten rid of everything, you see. And all you are is the pure self. And that's pure being, and that's beyond any kind of wisdom or knowledge. That's your true nature. So, therefore, you fly to it. I take refuge in that. In every lifetime. Pretty much covered that in a fell swoop, but let's look up the right-hand side, that is your right-hand side. Gross, primal, vital, ethereal, celestial, cosmic, divine, and universal. I had to stretch a bit to find words in English that would sort of relate how the soul graduates. And none of them are all that bad. Gross doesn't mean, horrible or anything. It means just physical. See, it's just vibrating at a very dense rate. And primal means you're getting into that level of prana, right? What's primal is prana. You feel it right there, you see. And vital also and primal are very much connected. Ethereal and celestial are close, but they suggest something a little bit gradated. I think ethereal means more like the heaven of your ancestors, and celestial means the angels, the sub-deities, the demigods, not the gods, but the demigods, or the division between the suras and the suras in India is a general demarcation in that realm. You go beyond the celestial, there's the cosmic. And that's why the Trinity is placed right there with Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva smiling at you. Do we have to sing it again? Or do we want to? Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Deva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dandvaititam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamashadilaksham Ekam Nicham Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Triguna Rahitam Sadgurum Tan Namami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And the tamboras fade away. So look for that on a YouTube video soon. We're gonna put that onto a music video. It'll be one of our next ones. In the meantime, look for Sri Sharada Devi He Mahamate coming soon to a computer screen near you. And you'll find that out within probably a week, thanks to, of course, Mahesh and his great work, and Annapurna doing the camera person doing the work on it for me. And that will be our third, that is really our fifth, but our third, or fourth, I think, really our third on our own website that covers SRV, Sharda, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, SRV. So we make a testament to each one of those in musical form for people to water bhakti with, because we do a lot of watering of Jnanam. We want to make sure and also include the bhakti side. Now, yes, I think that graph I wanted to point out, you get to the cosmic and divine, universal, and eventually transcendent. Sri Ramakrishna said at one time, I have taken flowers of different religions and I've woven them into a garland, and then I placed them at the feet of the Divine Mother of the Universe, and she was pleased. See? That's what she's been waiting for. That's what she sent him for. Universality of all religions. Remove those barriers. They each can exist, in their own essence, but they're rather like becoming. But you're rather more like being. See? Your nature is being. The nature of nature is more like becoming, right? So know your nature, divine or changing. Let's see. This is all changing. From Avyaktam all the way down to the element earth is changing. That is, from unmanifested Prakriti, where the seeds are for all these bodies and all these tattvas, is all changing all the time. So give these up, sannyas and bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. I will end here early, about 10 minutes, and we will be back live streaming weekend after next from Hawaii for all of you who want to continue on with this. And in that series called A Glimpse, or something like that, a glimpse of Yoga Vishishta. Yoga Vishishta at a glance is what our next series of classes will be. So for those of you who are studying it, those of you who have already read it, and for those of you who intend to read it, this will be a great series of classes to check in on. So here we will end with our chant. Om apyayantu mamangani vak pranaschakshuhu shrotramatra balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahma upanishad mahabrahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakaroda nirakara namastva nirakaranam meyastu tadatmani nirati upanishatsu dharmaste mai shantu te mai shantu. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. May our bodies experience great health. May our life force flow unimpeded, free of knots. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. For the Upanishads state that all existence is Brahman. Therefore may Brahman never reject us, and may we never reject Brahman. May there be no denial of Brahman ever by us, we who are realized in this very lifetime to seek out and realize the Atman. May all the divine qualities cited in the Upanishads abide within us. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.